Defiance is dead, but its soul lives on in each and every one of us. How did it come to this? Does anyone really know? All I can say is it will be missed, but never forgotten. For me, Defiance was the culmination of a childhood fantasy met with a ongoing challenge or thrill which you have of social competitiveness. But like all things, there's birth, death, and if you believe in it, rebirth. We're halfway through this year. Who knows? It could potentially return before the end of this year. Maybe some game development company might buy the license for it, or some intrepid independent fans of the game will start a private server for it. Anything is possible at this point. But in the meantime, I would like to discuss how the game changed my life, for better and for worse. About 3 years ago, I signed up for the closed summer beta of 2018 for Defiance 2050. It was the best decision in my gaming life. To see the graphically archaic Defiance revitalized on at the time, which were next gen consoles, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Was a magnificent sight. During that time, the visages of Defiance 2050 were refreshing. Reds were red, blues were blue, and everything in between. There was no real drama between anyone at that point. It was just people trying something new, or retrying something that was considered to be new to those who had not played it before. However, you, the listener, would like to say it, Defiance 2050 was the only way Defiance as a whole got to make it to 2021. But now we are in the post-mortem stages of Defiance. All that time spent playing, for me personally, all those friendships and rivalries and enemies I made are now, for the most part, no more. If there was a way I could freeze time and keep all those relationships intact, I would. But I am not Cronus. I have no control over the laws of time. What I am is a person who was simply a reactionary to the effects of humanity. See, humanity is what Defiance was. All walks of life, all cultures, all ages, everything. When the powers that be shut down Defiance, what they did was murder a microcosm of humanity. To any who hears my words, if you have the power to resurrect this microcosm of humanity that Defiance was, please do, sooner rather than later. don't allow this to be forgotten to the sands of time. Because unlike the seven wonders of the world, no one will remember this if you don't save it while it's still fresh in people's minds. Enough of me speaking on what I believe needs to happen. Let me talk about what did happen. I was in the game a player called Bolo Vanguard and Bolo Echelon. I was the creator and once founding member of B187. B187 was a PvP focused clan, but we strive, at least when I was around, to play all of our PvP matches legit. Legit means without cheating or exploits of any sort, give or take a few accidental ones from developer oversights, but I will digress on that on a following episode should I do this again. Okay, so to recap, I was Bolo, and B187 was my clan. The reason why I birthed B187 into existence was because I was outcasted by a player who would not be named directly on this channel. I would not take or accept their ways, and for that I had to be let go. This was the best and worst thing that happened to the Defiance 2050 PlayStation 4 North American server region. Best because it meant that there would be an almost zero tolerance for cheating and exploiting if I was aware of it and I could stop it. Worse, because it killed off a rather large and dedicated player base. Because some people cling to their made up legacies and are not willing to defend their name should it be challenged. To the contrary to that, I made my legacy on the game and I always defended it against my challengers, at least the first time they challenged me. In my humble opinion, people don't like to be challenged, especially if it's coming from someone that is of equal capability as them. That breeds fear, and fear is weakness. Once again, I will digress on that topic in a following episode should I do this again. Okay, so this or my Fearbowl channel is primarily a PvP uh, content channel. So I will talk about the early days of PvP on Defiance 2050. The early days were like this, laggy, and because of developer oversight, full of shield glitchers. Shield glitching was when a player removes a secondary weapon or grenade from their loadout. This right here basically confuses the map of the game and exploits the power level system that the game had from it was 0 to 5,000. And because of that exploitation of the power level, what was caused by shield glitching, it allowed players to negate massive amounts of damage. Now, when you're playing PvP, the point of it is to kill your opponent with fatal damage. If you cannot deliver fatal damage to your opponent, you cannot kill them, basically rendering them invincible. Now, the other way players would cheat during the early days of Defiance 2050's PvP was the power level exploit. That was when you have a primary or secondary weapon with a high power level and a primary or secondary or vice versa with a really low power level, like let's say a piece of common gear, which I guess would be white in color, something you would get and keep from playing the game, as I like to call it, fresh from the straddle carrier, post tutorial bloodbath gameplay, the noob gear, if you would. Now, because most people would not be able to identify this, those that did the power level exploit could say they were not cheating, but if you survive multiple attacks that deliver fatal damage, then you are cheating. At least before synergies was introduced into the game. Another topic for another time. Okay, so I was playing against all this. The class I utilized then was, I believe, the assassin class, because if you want to kill your opponent, you have to deliver fatal damage to them. And at that time, the assassin class was the easiest way to deliver fatal damage with pretty much any weapon, especially explosive weapons. The capabilities of explosive weapons being so powerful was because of developer oversight. But if your skill level was similar or better to someone using those types of weapons, you could still beat them. But like I had said earlier, humanity does not like to be challenged. So I would say a better killer then, because there was less things to keep players alive, like self-repairing shields and synergies and movement perks from the engineer class to those that are aware of all this. But I still lost matches because everyone loses except Floyd Mayweather. But this is not a boxing discussion. The player who was the biggest obstacle for me early on was someone who I consider to be the greatest player on the PlayStation 4 North America platform of all time, Patty Ghost. Patty Ghost was just a great killer. They also were a great in-game friend to me during that time. Some of their positive ways were imprinted on to me. Like trying to help less skilled players win their matches and motivate them to play their best. Had Patagos never stopped playing due to whatever circumstances made them stop playing, they would still be the best legit player on this platform before the game was canceled, that is. Patagos, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you are enjoying your life to the fullest. You're the GOAT. Moving on. So, that was the only legit obstacle for me, or they were, I should say. Competitive matches were pretty much just a slaughter fest for me. Just killing player after player every time I participated in one of them. Now, there were actually other players that were legit challengers, but because of reasons I won't mention, I'm not going to mention those other legit players that were like obstacles to me. I'm not going to put anyone down anymore because of personal differences. Matches queued up regularly. Clans would participate in them. Once they added a patch to the server, most of the bad lag was gone. It was a great time for PvP on Defiance 2050. That's why in life we should enjoy everything while it lasts, because it will not always be the same. Things change, people change. That's life. Hmm. And what else can I say for this episode? Let's go back to B187. B187 was my clan from the moment I created it to the moment the game shut down. But had I known what the final outcome would have been, I would never have created it. It's like this. If you want something, you have to make sacrifices. I made many sacrifices, and those sacrifices were people. And I would sacrifice those people again if I had to. And I know I just contradicted myself, but what I'm trying to say is, if I could make it all go away, I would never have did that. But if I was put back in those same scenarios, I would make the same choice again, if that makes sense. Should anyone watch this, please tune in for the next episode.